Good afternoon, all. In this session of TED Talk, now the next session is going to be how to educate the first generation students and what are the challenges and what are the challenges faced by them and what are the solutions that we can give them. First, we need to understand the definition of first generation learners. Now, who are first generation learners? Let's take a family, a mother and a father who work as farmers, and they want their wards to go to the school. So the parents never went to school, but now their children are they are going to school. They have joined the school for the formal education. Now this generation is called as a first generation. Let's take example of another family wherein mother and father, they are educated. Formally, they got educated till 10th standard, and now for the first time, the child is going for intermediate. Now this student, their ward is called as first generation learner. None of the family members have gone to university education. For the first time, someone from their family is going for university education. Now this child is called as first generation learner. Let's say, for example, the elder brother has gone for university, and the younger one is now going for school education. Still, they are called as the first generation learners. The reason is, when the parents, they have not attended any of their schooling education or college education or university education, they are called as first generation learners. Now the problem is, when a country like India, where it is predominantly an agrarian economy, where still urbanization is till 33%, 67% of the agrarian economy. Now this poses to be a very big problem. The first generation learners. The reason is, the first generation families, they always come from middle class, lower middle class, they come from low income families, almost no education. So these first generation learners, when they enter into the formal education, they face severe psychological problems, sociological problems, discrimination exists in such type of education. And we can see that basically among the rural areas. So what type of problem these first generation learners have? First generation students predominantly, they face psychological problems, economical problems, they have these social problems. Now when I talk about first generation learners, we can see that because of the schemes being launched by the states or the central governments, or as the Right to Education Act mandates that 6 to 14 years of children are mandated to be part of formal education till 10th class, now we can see a sea change among these first generation learners. And most of the teachers, most of the lecturers, they themselves are first generation learners. Means our parents, they are neither educated nor they have attended any formal education beyond any college. They might not have gone to university education, though they might have got educated in the school level. So we all, I too myself, I'm a first generation learner. Now what are the challenges that I might have faced? Or what are the challenges that you might have been facing? Or what are the challenges around the system, across the system, first generation learners are facing? Now if you see this percentage, they are staggering. These percentages are really staggering. Now what are the problems or the challenges that the first generation learners are facing? They are facing psychological, personal, economical and social problems. Now psychological problems, they can be graded. All these problems, they can be graded from low to average to high. And if you see that average psychological problems are more, average economical problems are more, average social problems are more, and if you computed them, the total is also staggering. And especially the psychological problems, they account for 61% of the total problems faced by the first generation learners. It's huge. It's not economical problem. It's not social discrimination. It's severe psychological problem for every student. Now imagine, where are the counselors? Where is the system? Where are the teachers? How come the first generation learners are facing 61% of the psychological problems? And when it comes to psychological problems, then comes the biggest challenge, that is inferiority complex among these first generation learners. And when that inferiority complex, it creeps into the minds of the first generation students, then comes the tendency of suicide. That's the biggest problem which presently the system is been facing. And in the recent past, we have seen, saddening, disappointing, in the last 10 days, we have seen students committing suicides in different colleges. Why do you think so? If you study their family background, at least 70% of such students are first generation learners. Means parents don't know anything, they never had any formal education, they take their kids, they go to the schools, they go to the colleges, they admit the students in the schools and the colleges, and they say, please, we want my child, I want my child to have a great university education. I want my child to see in the Silicon Valley. I want my child to be in Wipro or etc. Now the parent doesn't understand the pressure the child might have been going through that. And what are those things? Let us see them. And if these problems can again be segregated into boys, they can be gender-based, they can be family-based, they can be locality-based. And I'm telling you, the problems, the psychological problems, the economical problems, or the social problems which are faced, I'm sorry. Okay. The problems faced by the students, they are different for girls, they are different for boys. They are different for urban, they are different for rural. Now imagine a student who is coming from rural area, and she is a girl, and she goes to university education. Now come on, what happens? You will see that they are under huge stress. They are under gender stress, they are under economic stress, they are under social discriminative stress, they are under this syllabus stress. Now the biggest problem is there is no particular syllabus that has been tailor-made or garnered for these first generation learners. A rural economy, a student hailing from rural area, he directly goes to the college or a university which boasts that they have the international standards and the kind of the syllabus that they have, that they say that we are interlinked with some other university in England, and the kind of the vocabulary, the language, the syllabus that the student might be facing abruptly when he enters into that institution, the student may not be able to face that. And now, is there any counseling center for students? No. Is there any psychological distress caring center for them? No. Is there anyone who is actually making a parameter of their economical standards? No. Is there anyone who is really measuring their social discriminative standards? No. Directly a first generation learner without any family background or without any support of any family members, also relatives or any other friends, directly entering into an education system which clearly mandates that do or die. The present system clearly says that survival of the fittest. Now, do you really think that the first generation learners can survive? No, 90% of the first generation learners are not able to survive. Now, who should be made responsible for this? Can we blame the system? Nope. Can we blame the economists who are really framing this economy as per the economics, as per the education standards? Nope. The biggest problem lies with the academicians. Now you may ask you why. 90% of the academicians, they themselves are the first generation learners. And once they enter the stage into that arena, they forget that they're actually first generation learners. And they put the first generation learners who are coming now, they put them into the stress. Now, the change should start from here. What is that? Okay, so there are locality and family related first generation learner stress also. They are also same significantly which can be garnered for. And what are the basic challenges which are faced by the first generation learners? You can see that they have family conflicts. They feel shame. They feel guilt. They feel confused. They have the anxiety. Now, once a student enter into an institute like IIT, he enters into premier institutes like TEDxYouth Hyderabad or Indian School of Business of Hyderabad. Imagine what a first generation learner, he would be feeling shame, anxiety, confusion. Where am I going? That stress level of comparison, peer pressure, the economical comparison, the social comparison. All these comparisons make the first generation learner to move into that area or the perimeter called as psychological stress, and that is where you can see the staggering percentage of 61% of psychological stress. And how can we really support these first generation learners? There is a financial support actually which government can do, and they're also doing. But however, economical factors are the basic main factors where the parents are not able to send the students for education or their wards for education. So government has to provide these financial support, zero loan support, zero interest support for the family members or for the parents. But that's not being done. That need to be addressed first. Second thing is the syllabus. The syllabus which is created by the so-called NCERT or SCERT, they should be tailor-made for the first generation learners, because now the National Education Policy 2020 mandates that the primary level education or the pre-primary level education should be in the mother tongue. So that helps. But does it really help when the student moves to the 6th level education? No. And what about the technical education? So the first generation learners made to be aware of the technical education that is being needed. Let's say, for example, we have polytechnical institutes which are being addressed by the government of India. In the past, they have been established as per the Presidential Gazette. But now there is not much awareness among the students regarding that, and the students are being run only towards intermediate. Now this is because of the lack of understanding among the parents, because they are sending them for the first generation. Now that kind of awareness is not being provided to the parents. Now who should provide? Government should provide a facilitation center for them to bring the awareness among the parents regarding academics, regarding technical education, regarding higher education. There are many first generation learners who are traveling to abroad after their university. Are there any facilitations by the government? No, no. Are there at the university level? No. So these are the basic things which need to be addressed. And do they really have, are they doing all these things? Organizing a student groups. So what kind of student groups they need to be addressed? There might be a student who is coming from a family background, whose ancestors and whose parents, they're all well educated. We have been seeing that. Since the day of independence, there are families who are highly educated. We can see them. And imagine a first generation learner sitting with him as a peer in a school or in a college or in a university. The kind of the language this student might be speaking to the kind of the language this student might be speaking. Imagine the amount of the stress he might be. The kind of the social barrier it creates, the kind of the economical barrier it creates. Now who is there to address? That is where the government should pitch in. That is where the university should pitch in. That is where the school should pitch in. That is where the academicians should pitch in. It's not that the academicians should talk big about, about our ranks, about, students doing great, or, we should not boast about all the Indians are heading the great corporate. It's not that. 1 in a million can become the CEO of Google. 1 in a million can become a CEO of Citibank. Not all. Now I'm questioning about what about the other remaining part of that million? Other remaining 90% of that million are the first generation learners. Now why they are not able to become the CEOs of such companies? Because they have that stigma. They have that trauma, economical trauma, social trauma, all kinds of peer pressures, especially syllabus. And you see the difference between the first generation learner and the non-first generation learner. The non-first generation learner, he always comes with a pride, with a sense of proud that my family is well settled. We are economically well settled. We are educated. Somehow I'm going to establish a company. But is it that the first generation can really do that? No. First generation learner is always under the inferiority complex of I don't have money, I'm socially discriminated, and all this. So then, what is that we need to do? We need to make the first generation to embrace the first generation identity. We need to counsel them and tell them that, yes, you are from first generation. You need to tell them, find people like you, make a peer group, and they need to plug into network. They need to become one group, and they need to start addressing their own problems. And they need to step out of their comfort zone. They need to realize what they are, and they need to make most of the schooling hours. This is the biggest thing what the first generation learners forget. They need to make most of their schooling hours and college hours. They need to sit there. They need to spend 14, 15, 16 hours. They need to study the journals, and they need to be career wise. They need to understand how the career is going to. So the problem, we have seen that there is a section in our society which is a staggering percentage of 80%, which is called first generation. They have the challenges, and these are the only things which can really address them. So now, addressing the problem of first generation learners can really make India to stride into the 22nd century. And if we can become the superpower in 22nd generation, in 22nd century, then it's only in the hands of these first generation learners who afterwards can make their children as the second and third and fourth generation learners. So it's my appeal from my side that all measures should be taken to address this issue, though this issue appears invisible. Really, this issue has not been addressed till date. But this, though it appears invisible, it is going to be a great problem in the coming years. So the quick that we address this, the more powerful we are going to be in the 22nd century. Thank you very much.